is back, baby. Come on. The Premier League is back, guys. If you can't tell already, I'm madly excited. So, welcome back to the Premier League Appetiser show. I'm Coach Indy. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, quickly do that now. Click the subscribe button. You'll get all the content that comes onto the Asian One-to-One Football Coaching channel. On today's episode, you won't be able to get this smile off my face, by the way, guys. Absolutely buzzing. Premier League's back. Another round of fixtures is going to be happening this weekend. So on today's episode, we're going to talk about last week's results, some of the outstanding performances individually and collectively. Then we'll look ahead at game week 2, see what fixtures are interesting ones, and obviously there's one outstanding fixture which we'll dive into a little bit later on. We'll have a look at some of the transfers that have happened over the last week or so, some of the things that are in the pipeline, rumour-wise, all that kind of thing. We'll also just talk about some of the League Cup results and Europa League results, the qualifying ones. And then we'll also look at some other news, and then also be talking about the first segment, week 1 of last week, where we had Indy versus the rest of the world, the predictions. So we'll talk about that, and then also we'll have a look at game week 2, and there'll also be another guest who's predicting the results for game week 2. Representing the rest of the world, so we'll stuck into all that later on. First and foremost, we will talk about game week 1 and the results. So we'll just whiz through some of them. So if you remember from last Saturday, the early kick-off, which was Fulham versus Arsenal, that result finished 3-0 Arsenal. Brilliant result for Arsenal. Very, very disappointing for Fulham. Back into the Premier League, home fixture, London derby. You expect them to put more of a fight, better performance in, maybe even a better result as well. Wasn't to be. Having said that, credit to Arsenal and Mikel Arteta's team. Played really, really well, especially in the advanced areas. It's easy to just look at the attacking players and say, done well, scored 3 goals, Aubameyang, Lacazette. But also look at the defensive side of things. They did nullify Fulham quite well. They didn't look like they were conceding many chances either, which is a very good sign for Arsenal. So, yeah, brilliant start for Arsenal. Not so impressive for Fulham. Then we had Crystal Palace versus Southampton. That game finished 1-0 to Crystal Palace. Certainly, some people would say that's a shock, considering the form of Palace last season, especially the back end of the season, and the form of Southampton in the back end of the season as well. So, Wilfred Zaha had scored the goal, which was a nice finish from a Townsend cross. And interestingly, he did actually play up front, which was maybe something to look out for going forward. But yeah, fantastic result for Crystal Palace. Clean sheet at home. Brilliant way to start the season. Then we had the first of the later kickoffs. So yeah, Liverpool versus Leeds. Probably the outstanding fixture of the weekend. Certainly on paper, and probably it turned out to be that on the field as well. So it finished Liverpool 4, Leeds 3, and very, very tight game in terms of the scoreline, but also actually on the field as well. Some people would say Leeds deserved maybe a point out of the game. Some people say they deserve 3. On the flip side, Liverpool say they created, umpteen chances and they could have scored, 10 goals, for example. I think the Liverpool did deserve to win the game. But a fantastic game. So goals from, I think Salah scored a hat-trick. Then you had Newcastle boys, Harrison scored, you had Bamford who scored. So there's lots and lots of goals. Really, really interesting to see how Leeds played. They pretty much played so energetic, played basically almost the same sort of style in terms of the intensity and the energy that Liverpool provide. So it was very, very difficult for Liverpool, because that's probably, in terms of any other team they've played in recent years, that's probably the most hard-working opposition they've played against. So it's quite difficult for Liverpool in that sense. This is something I want to touch on Leeds as well. They literally played a man-to-man job all over the pitch. So the 3 in midfield locked onto the 3 that Liverpool had in midfield. Defensively, the back 4 were locked onto their front 3, and sometimes even if there was one fullback pushed on, so if it was Robertson or Arnold locked on, they pushed on as well. So it literally was man-to-man all over the pitch for 90 minutes. So really, really fascinating to see how they're going to approach the season. Then we had the later game, which was West Ham versus Newcastle. Both of these managers under pressure from the get-go, really. David Moyes at West Ham for obvious reasons we touched on last week, and then Steve Bruce, who's never really been a fan's favourite in terms of the managerial choice, but actually has done quite a good job, especially last season. And he's kicked off with a win this campaign as well, opening game of the season away from home. A couple of the new boys heavily involved, so Callum Wilson scoring a goal, and Jeff Hendrick scoring a goal as well, the ex-Burnley midfielder. He actually got an assist as well for Callum Wilson's goal, so he had a heavy impact in the result. And also Jamal Lewis, he actually was thrown in as well at left back, part of a defensive unit that kept a clean sheet as well. So promising signs for Newcastle. And there are still other players on the bench like Fraser, who obviously has joined this summer as well, Admiron, Matt Ritchie, all these types of players. Disappointing for West Ham. They've got an abundance of attacking players who didn't really put in a performance that was maybe expected, especially on the back of how they played at the back end of last season. But obviously it's early stages, guys, so anything can happen in this early stages, like I said. Moving on to Sunday, we had the West Brom versus Leicester game, which was the earlier kick-off on the Sunday. That finished West Brom 0, Leicester 3. Jamie Vardy scored a couple of goals there as well for Leicester. Emphatic win for them. I think it's actually really important for them to almost come out all guns blazing and sort of pick up a win early on in the season, no earlier than the first game of the season. So just to put sort of the back end of last season to bed, or I'll say the back end, it's probably the second half of the season, put that to bed and sort of say fresh campaign, let's go again. And also they've lost Ben Chilwell, which is a big player for them. And obviously Maddison's missed a bit this season as well, or back end of last season, so he was a miss. So yeah, quite an emphatic scoreline and performance as well, just to put a few doubts to bed, if you like. So a good win for them. Then moving on to the second game on the Sunday, which was Spurs versus Everton. Mourinho versus Ancelotti, two heavyweight managers against each other, won so much over the last 20 years in various leagues across Europe, Champions Leagues, league titles, domestic cups, etc. And this actually finished Spurs 0, Everton 1, which was, on paper, you expect Mourinho and his team to come out home game on the back of the Spurs All or Nothing documentary, to go out and put in a good performance on the back of them purchasing Højbjerg and Joe Hart being influential in the dressing room, Matt Doherty from Wolves as well. And they never really did perform, guys. It was actually Everton, the away team, who had new signings in their team as well, Decore, James Rodriguez, and Decore and Allen as well, sorry. So yeah, those types of players, and they actually excelled. It wasn't just those three, you had Richarlison and DCL, and you can mention the back line as well. So they actually won the game 1-0 through a really, really strong, powerful header from Calvert-Lewin. Rose like a salmon, bang, forehead, straight into the top corner, beautiful cross from Luca Digne. So yeah, won the game 1-0, and probably the scoreline didn't flatter them either. So yeah, good start for Ancelotti. If they've got ambitions to get into Europe this season, they need to pick up points away from home, and a brilliant start for the season. So good for them. Moving on to the two Monday games. So you had Sheffield United Wolves, which was the earlier kick-off. The Sheffield and Wolves both had really good campaigns last season, especially domestically. So Sheffield obviously debut season, and Wolves have been in there for a bit longer. This game was finished 2-0 to Wolves, the away team. They actually scored both goals in the opening 6 minutes. It was a really, really positive, aggressive, energetic start from Wolves. Having said that, Sheffield United did contribute to the goals as well. They weren't aggressive enough, and they lacked a little bit of discipline and organisation in the early parts of the game. Jimenez scoring and Roman Saiss scoring as well for Wolves. Yes, it's a good rebound, if you like, a good start for Wolves in the respect that they went out in the quarterfinals of the Europa League last season and missed out on European football domestically as well. So for them they obviously want to get back into Europe, probably pushing for the Champions League as well. So really, really good result for them. Sheffield, less so. Their home form was terrific last season. This is obviously not the way they wanted to start their campaign. They've obviously don't have Dean Henderson anymore, and Aaron Ramsdale's come in, and obviously he's a in my opinion, not as good of a goalkeeper than what Dean Henderson is. Having said that, I don't think he could have done much with either of the goals. There was maybe a little bit of a question mark over the second goal because of the location of where the ball went into the net. Could he have could he have moved his feet a little bit more to sort of get his hand onto the ball? That's up for another debate. But yeah, like I said early on in the season, so you can't really draw too many conclusions on either team just yet. And then finally, just to round off the first round of the fixtures, Brighton versus Chelsea. This game finished Brighton 1, Chelsea 3. Lots of debuts for both teams really. Chelsea had Werner, Havertz played as well. Brighton, who did they have? The young lad from, actually he was a Brighton player but was on loan at Leeds. White, the centre half, he played as well. So yeah, Chelsea looked good going forward. Still a little bit shaky defensively, but they didn't have any new players from their purchases in terms of defensive assets playing. So hopefully that will happen in the coming weeks and they'll look stronger defensively. But all in all, very impressive from Chelsea. I don't think Brighton, they didn't play poorly. It's just that Chelsea looked really strong going forward and punished them really, and quite ruthless in that sense. So yeah, good result for Chelsea. And that rounds off sort of game week 1, guys. Obviously, like I said, there was 4 teams that didn't play in game week 1 because of last year's sort of European competitions and stuff, which meant they couldn't play in game week 1. So we'll move on to game week 2 and we'll just run through the fixtures on those. So the early kick-off on the Saturday is Everton versus West Brom. The way I look at this game, Everton obviously had a really good win last week against Spurs, and West Brom had a really bad defeat at home to Leicester. So all in all, everything is pointing towards an Everton win here. Be interesting to see how the new boys cope, because a lot of the time when new players come in, it's almost like a bit of an adrenaline rush to get through the game. So can they back it up, these players? So it'll be interesting to see if they can back it up. And then you've got 2 of the promoted clubs at 3 o'clock playing against each other. You've got Leeds versus Fulham. So Bielsa versus Scott Parker. This will be really interesting just to see where both teams are at. Sort of, was maybe their first game of the season, being in the big time. A bit false, if you like. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see head to head. So they both go for it. Fulham playing away from home to say, I'll take a point. Leeds being at home thinking, right, the ascendancy needs to be in our hands. We need to go and win our home games, especially against, some people say, a direct opposition in terms of maybe staying in the division. Now some Leeds fans will say, we're going to finish in the division, no problem at all. They're thinking, higher up in the table. They're more ambitious than that. But nevertheless, I think overall, if you look at it, I think the first goal should always be stay in the division if you're a promoted club. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. Then you've got Man United versus Crystal Palace. So Man United obviously didn't play in game week 1 because of the reasons I mentioned earlier. Home to Crystal Palace, that's a 5:30 kick-off. Will Martial, will Bruno, will Rashford, all these players sort of continue their form from the back end of last season. It'll be interesting to see that. Obviously Palace have had a game already, a good 1-0 win home to Southampton, and also they've actually had quite a good pre-season in terms of results. I think they might have won all their games, and they did play quite a few, maybe 4 games as well. Granted, they were against lesser opposition, but still, you've still got to go and put the performance in and get yourself sharp that way. Then to the late game, which is Arsenal versus West Ham, Arteta versus David Moyes, London derby. Can Arsenal make it back-to-back wins and effectively maybe even go top of the league potentially? I know it's early stages, guys. I'm just putting it out there. And obviously West Ham lost their first game. They probably want to get points on the board as soon as possible. They don't want to go on a back-to-back defeats, and all of a sudden you go to game week 3 and maybe into 4 and you still haven't got any points. So they want to obviously get maybe a point to sort of get themselves up and running. Moving on to Sunday, Southampton versus Spurs. This is going to be a massive game actually for both clubs. Both of them lost their opening game. No one wants to start the season back-to-back defeats, so pressure's on both actually. So yeah, that'd be an interesting game. Hopefully there'll be goals in this game actually. I'm hoping there will be. You've got Danny Ings and Che Adams on the Southampton side of things, who, especially Danny Ings, is fantastic goal scorer. proven that last season in the Premier League. And obviously you've got Harry Kane, who's fantastic striker, been in the Premier League, knows how to score goals, been doing it for the last 5 seasons in the Prem, along with Son and Moura and Dele Alli and all these other players. Then you got the big game of the weekend, which is Chelsea versus Liverpool. Now, these two teams played each other at the back end of last season. Granted, the fixture was reversed. It was at Anfield. I think the game finished like 4-3 to Liverpool, I think it was. Back and forth the game was. Slightly different circumstances now. Obviously, it's a fresh season. Chelsea have got a much changed squad. So yeah, this game is really, really fascinating. Just to see where Chelsea are in terms of the new players coming in. Are they going to be a threat to Liverpool? Just to see the difference in sort of the quality of the teams. Are they going to be threats to each other? I don't know. And obviously, Liverpool side of things, they want to continue from where they, from their win from last week. They obviously want to put some wrongs right in terms of how they played defensively and a few individual errors in that game, and obviously against a big rival as well. So yeah, just to see where both teams are will be really, really fascinating. Actually, I've got a sneaky suspicion, and we will talk about this later on in a different segment. I've got a sneaky suspicion Chelsea might do well. I won't say too much just yet. And then we've got a fourth game on the Sunday as well, which is a 7 o'clock kickoff, which is Leicester versus Burnley. Burnley's first game of the season as well. First league game of the season, should I say. This will be an interesting game. Interesting sort of side plot, if you like, to this game is Leicester interested in Tarkowski, which is a Burnley centre-half as well. So could that maybe persuade, if Leicester get a good win, hypothetically speaking, could that persuade Tarkowski to think, actually, Leicester are a strong team, playing in Europe this season, I want to be a bit more ambitious. Helps with my England recognition as well. Maybe will that push him towards there? I don't know. But yeah, it would be an interesting game nevertheless. Then moving on to the Monday, where we've got a couple of games. We've got Aston Villa versus Sheffield. Aston Villa's first game of the season as well. And obviously Sheffield United have had they've had a league game and a League Cup game as well. So interesting to see how both teams cope there. Villa obviously want to start the campaign strong at home. Not in front of the fans, but still they want to try and make Villa Park a bit of a fortress if they can. Also bedding in a couple of new signings as well with Watkins and Matty Cash and a few others as well, Martinez, which we'll touch on a little bit later on. And then the last game to round off sort of game week 2, Wolves versus Manchester City, probably on paper the second sort of mouth-watering game of the game week. So Wolves have won their opening game, and this is Man City's first game of the 2021 campaign. This is going to be another mouth-watering game in my opinion. Very, very tight game. We can't see being loads and loads of goals in this game. Not like a 4-3 like Liverpool leads or anything like that. You've obviously got two well-organised teams out of possession. And then going forward in possession, both teams, Wolves on the transition are very, very effective with Traore and Jimenez and other players like that, Podence. And obviously Man City with Sterling and Mahrez and Kevin De Bruyne, all these types of players. It's going to be a fantastic sort of way to finish game week 2, if you like. So guys, there are the fixtures for game week 2. We're just going to move on to some transfers that have happened over the last week or so, and things that are sort of in the pipeline, things that are materialising, sort of bubbling along quite nicely for various teams and various players. So 3 deals have sort of happened over the last week or so. First one was Martinez, the goalkeeper that was at Arsenal. He has signed for Aston Villa for a fee to believed to be around about £20 million. I think that's a fantastic signing for Aston Villa. If you look at the way he performed the back end of last season for Arsenal, didn't look out of place, looked really assured, looked confident. So yeah, I think that's what they've been missing. A solid goalkeeper that's they can help the team defensively. So yeah, he brings up not loads of experience because he hasn't played loads for Arsenal, but he certainly brings maybe a big club mentality experience, if you like. Michy Batshuayi has joined Crystal Palace on loan for the season, so that will be a good signing for Crystal Palace if they can. Just looking at their forward line, if Zaha stays, they've got Batshuayi plays as a lone striker. You've got Zaha on the left. You could play AU as a number 10, and then you could play young Eze, this young winger they signed from QPR on the right, and that's a lot of energy, a lot of power, a lot of excitement, and potentially a lot of goal threat there as well. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see what Crystal Palace actually this season, if they play a bit more sort of attacking style football. Certainly looks that way with the signings they've made so far. And then the last one is another loan signing. West Brom have signed Branislav Ivanovic on loan for the season. This one just came out of the blue. He's 36 years old. Obviously, he's an ex-Chelsea player. Played there for a number of years. Really solid player, centre half. Can play right back as well. Be interesting to see how Slaven Bilic actually uses him. If he uses him as a centre back or if he uses him as a right back, and what formation they play him in. I suggest you probably play the middle of a back three just to sort of organise things and have a bit of youth around them as well. So those are the sort of deals that have happened over the last week or so. Things that are in the pipeline at the moment, guys. You've got Bertrand Traoré, who is a young winger who was at Ajax. He's now at Lyon. He's heavily linked with who's he linked with? Aston Villa. So Aston Villa are making waves in the transfer window. Obviously, you've signed a few players already. And then looking for another young, exciting winger as well. As a left-footed player, very dynamic, tricky, likes to cut in and get his shots away and make some crosses. So that could potentially happen in the next week or two. Incidentally, we have only got 2 weeks left of the window, of the international window left. So things will start happening a bit more over the next sort of couple of weeks. You've got Ben Rama, who's a left-sided player for Brentford in the Champ. He's been linked with Crystal Palace and West Ham, more so with Crystal Palace. People are putting two and two together, thinking if he does come to Crystal Palace, Zaha might go to another club, whether it be Dortmund, Arsenal. These clubs have been linked with him. Another one, Edouard Mendy. He's been linked with Chelsea for a number of weeks now. He's a goalkeeper, plays in France. I think this one will happen. It's just a matter of case of time, really. It might go down to the wire, it might not. Josh King, this one was in the sort of, it was trending on Twitter actually a couple of weeks ago, and more so sort of over the last week. He's been linked heavily with Spurs. So he's a versatile player, can play on both flanks, can play as a 10, can play as a 9. Could be good backup for Harry Kane potentially. Troy Deeney, he's been linked actually with Spurs as well and with West Brom. I actually think it'd be a really good signing for Spurs, just because it gives them, a number of reasons. One, it gives them another captain, another leader, understands what it takes to be a big player. Different type of player to Harry Kane and Son. He probably doesn't mind being more, he obviously wants to play, but he's probably happy to be more of an impact player. They can change the way they play, gives the team a different options. So that'd be an interesting one if that does materialise. We've got a few deals that have actually materialised sort of last night that were almost on the verge of happening, guys. So you've got Gareth Bale to Spurs, you've got Sergio Reguilon to Spurs, and you've got Thiago Alcantara from Bayern Munich to Liverpool. So those three there are on the verge of happening. They might happen in the next 24 hours. I suggest all three of them will probably happen. They won't be playing this weekend for their clubs because they needed to sign by 12 o'clock on the Friday UK time, and that hasn't happened. So they might be available for the League Cup games, which are in the midweek coming up. Very, very excited for Spurs, very, very excited for Liverpool. Big players, European stature, certainly Bale and Thiago. Big players come to the Premier League, guys. So as a Man United fan, especially with the Thiago one, I'm very, very jealous about that. Less so about Bale. I don't know too much about Sergio Reguilon, if I'm totally honest, but by all accounts, everything I've read, he seems like a very exciting, energetic left back. So he's one maybe for the future. As a future, as in he's still played plenty of games, but he's maybe not going to be at the levels of a Bale or a Thiago immediately. And then obviously a few other things that I've sort of I keep touching on. The Sancho one, will that happen, will it not? I don't know if that's going to happen. I'm less confident about that to Man United. Danny Rose, he's been left out of Spurs' squad list this season, so he's been linked with Genoa in Italy. That's a massive sort of decline in movement, if you like, in terms of where he wants to be and the stature of the club, if you like. Klein, Nathaniel Klein, obviously he's a Liverpool player. He has actually been training with Crystal Palace at the moment. They never really replaced a right back when Wan-Bissaka left last season, so potentially that one could materialise. He's just training there, guys, at the moment. I don't know if anything's going to happen. The last one I read about was someone called forgive my pronunciation, Cengiz Under. Now he's a winger that plays for Roma, a left-sided player, or left-footed player should I say, plays on the right-hand side. I don't really know too much about him, if I'm totally honest, guys, but that one's sort of in the pipeline as well. Obviously Leicester haven't done too much business at the moment, they're trying to get more bodies in. So yeah, watch this space on that one really. Yeah, moving on to the League Cup, and then we'll talk briefly about the qualifying stages in Europa League. Happened sort of yesterday. So the League Cup started over sort of the midweek of this week, and 13 Premier League clubs were involved in round 2. I won't go through all the results, but I just mentioned the Premier League teams that actually got knocked out. So I'll just run through them really, really quickly. So Palace actually lost to Bournemouth 11-10 on penalties. That was a mouth-watering penalty shootout, if you like. So yeah, Palace are out. Wolves played Stoke at home. They lost 1-0 in normal time. I should have said actually there is no extra time actually in the League Cup. It's straight to pens. So yeah, lost 0-1. Sheffield lost on pens to Burnley in that game. So one of the Premier League teams are going to go out in that one. That finished 1-1 in normal time. I think they went out 5-4. Southampton lost at home to Brentford. So Brentford obviously a champ team. Lost 0-2 in that game. Leeds lost the Yorkshire Derby against Hull, finished 1-1 in normal time. They lost 8-9 on penalties. So yeah, 5 teams are out. We're now moving to round 3. So round 3 will take place this midweek coming up. So this is where the other 7 Premier League clubs will come into play. Teams are basically playing in Europe. So lots of Man United, Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea, Arsenal, Spurs and Leicester all come into play. So they'll take place in round 3. Incidentally, round 4 draw has also taken place already. So the potential mouth-watering tie that could happen is Chelsea versus Spurs. If both of them win their round 3 game, they play each other in round 4. And I think Liverpool, if they win their game in round 3, they'll either play Leicester or Arsenal. So a couple of heavyweight games potentially could happen if they go and win their games in round 3. Just going to touch on Europa League qualifying. So last night Spurs played round 2 qualifying. Just a one-off game. Whoever won the game will go into round 3. Spurs won this game 1-2. Late goals from Harry Kane from the spot, and then Ndombele scored as well. So it wasn't comfortable from what I saw. They did actually go 1-0 down, and then they had 2 players sent off the opposition team, and then that's when Spurs scored 2 goals. So nevertheless, they've got through, and that's the most important thing. Okay, we'll just move on to the prediction segment, which we started. So basically, guys, I'll just run through it again. It's a new segment that I've introduced to the channel on the Premier League Appetiser show. Effectively, how it's going to work. Myself, Indy, will predict a round of Premier League results against another person. So in this case, on round 1, it was my brother Gerps. He's going to be representing the rest of the world. So it won't be a case of, if I scored 10 and he scored 12, then it's 1-0 to the rest of the world. It's a cumulative thing. So we'll run through those, and then obviously for round 2, I've had someone else predict the round 2, and we'll go through them as well. So yeah, round 1 was myself against Gerps. So these were the scores that we both predicted. So we'll run through them. We both went for a 3-1 Arsenal win, and the score finished 3-0. So the scoring, again, I did mention on the last one, but I'll just run through it again. In this case here, because we both predicted 3-1, we both get 2 points. Now, if the score was 3-1, then both teams will score 5 points, and obviously if you don't get it right at all, then you'll get 0. So yeah, we both picked up 2 points there. I predicted 1-1 in the Southampton game against Palace. He predicted 0-0. Both went for a draw. The scoreline was 1-0 Palace, so 0 points. West Ham versus Newcastle. This score finished 2-0 to Newcastle. Both predicted 2-2. So 0 points for both parties there. Liverpool versus Leeds. Obviously the game finished 4-3 to Liverpool. I went for a 3-1 win. He went for a 3-0 win. Both pick up 2 points. So after the first lot of games of the first day on the Saturday, the scores are 4-4. Moving on to the Sunday, so you had West Brom versus Leicester. I went for a 3-1 Leicester. He went for a 2-1 Leicester. Scoreline was 3-0 Leicester. So both picked up 2 points there. Spurs versus Everton. Scoreline was Spurs 0, Everton 1. I went for 3-1 and he went for 2-1. So we both picked up 2 points there. So we're both now on... Still on 6. Sorry, still on 6 there, guys. Then moving on to the Monday game, sorry. We had Sheffield United versus Wolves. Scoreline finished Sheffield 0, Wolves 2. So I went for Sheffield United to win this game 2-1, and GURPS went for a 1-1 draw. So actually, we didn't pick up any points there. So again, still 6-6 at this point, guys. This is where it gets very interesting in here. So the scoreline was, for the last game, sorry, Brighton versus Chelsea. The scoreline was Brighton 1, Chelsea 3. Now I went for Brighton 1, so I got that part correct, and Chelsea to score 4. So I picked up 2 points there, guys. So I need GURPS not to get, well, he might get 2, he might get 5, he might get 0. So I obviously want him to get 0, then I would be in the lead, if you like, going into round 2. He went for Brighton 1, so he's got that part right. And then he went for Chelsea 3. So he's actually picked up 5 points there for the rest of the world. So that actually brings the scores to Indy 8, rest of the world 11. So a little bit disappointing there from my behalf. Nevertheless, guys, it's it's not a sprint, it's a marathon, So some people might say they like to sprint through the marathon, but good luck to them. So rest of the world have taken a 3-point lead, if you like, going into game week 2. So that takes me to the next round of predictions. So we'll just run through the predictions of my scores and the next person, which is another one of my brothers, AJ. So we'll run through those quickly. Everton versus West Brom, both gone for 3-1. Leeds versus Fulham, both gone for 2-1. Very interesting. The results do change, guys. It just happened to be the first two were the same. Leicester versus Burnley. I've gone for 2-0 Leicester. He's gone for 4-0 Leicester. I'm thinking, wow, it's a very brave one. Burnley very rarely concede heavily, unless it's against Man City. Man United versus Crystal Palace. Now I've gone for a Man United 2-1 win, and he has gone for a draw. He's gone for 1-1. He is a Man United fan. He is very much a pessimist. So that's probably why he's gone 1-1. So I'm believing in the boys. We'll hopefully get to a good start in the season, pick up a W and move into the rest of the season. Next game, Southampton versus Spurs. I've gone for Spurs to edge this one 2-1. An ugly type win, that's what I'm predicting, if you like. He's actually gone for Southampton 1, Spurs 1. So again, different results there as well. Moving on to Arsenal versus West Ham. I've gone for Arsenal to win 3-1. He has gone for Arsenal to win 2-0. So both come for an Arsenal win. Both to win by the same margin, but different scorelines. Villa versus Sheffield United. So I've gone for Villa to win this one 2-1. And AJ has gone for a 1-1 draw. Again, different scores in this one. Newcastle versus Brighton. Both gone for Newcastle wins. I've gone for a 2-1 win. He's gone for a 1-0 win. Thinking about that, probably shouldn't have gone with that, but I can't change it now. I said it last time. As soon as you've locked your scores in, you can't change it. Next one, Chelsea versus Liverpool. Both of us here have gone for a 2-2 draw. So we both think goals. We both think that Chelsea won't lose, and so normal Liverpool, hence the draw. It's a 2-2 in that one. And then Wolves versus Manchester City. So I've gone for Man City to pick up a W in the opening game of the season. Very difficult fixture away from home, but I've still gone for them to win. And then AJ's gone for Wolves 2, Man City 2. So he's actually gone for a draw there. So generally speaking, I would say there's probably a bigger difference in scorelines and predictions from the first game week. But what we do, guys, we'll round up those next week. We'll talk about the scores and then the cumulative scores as well, going into game week 3. Okay, We'll now just look at some other news that's happened over the last sort of week or so as well to round off this Appetiser show. The first thing I just want to touch on is it's big news for Wolves. Their manager Nuno Espirito Santo has signed a new 3-year deal that takes them to the year 2023, or the end of the campaign 2022/2023. So that's big news. He, over the last year or so, obviously he's been doing a fantastic job for a couple of years now at Wolves, but he's been linked with big jobs like Arsenal and Man United and teams like that, even Spurs at one point. So it's good news for Wolves to tie him down, and also it just helps with the continuity and the stability of the football club, and also it helps with the personnel that are already there. They're more likely to stay because the manager's staying there as well. The likes of Jimenez has been linked to go elsewhere, and other players as well, Traore, and they might still go, guys. But the fact that Nuno's committed, I think it's more likely that those players will stay and sort of want to continue that journey, if you like. Some other sort of sad news or negative news, if you like, in the it's made the press, if you like, and it's circulating around social media about Mason Greenwood. I don't want to touch on it. Don't want to sort of talk about it too much because I don't want to sort of put the boy down a little bit. He's only 18, but he was pictured. Sort of came out through social media and stuff, and through sort of news outlets, if you like, that basically he was inhaling laughing gas. So this took place for when Man United season finished, and before he went to England duty. So obviously he's come out and said that he's apologised for what he's done. He didn't mean to do it. He didn't realise the repercussions from a health point of view. So yeah, he's a young lad. He's obviously come out onto social media and it's made the news. I would just say, not just because I'm a Man United fan, I think he's an 18-year-old. You're going to make errors in life, and especially when you're 18 and you're a young lad and you're getting a lot of publicity and a lot of people's sort of attention, if you like, you're going to maybe do stupid things. So as long as he learns from this and it doesn't sort of it doesn't happen again, or it doesn't make these types of errors again going forward, then I think it's all about a learning curve. I don't want to get too deep, guys, but life's all about learning, isn't it? Moving on to the COVID situation, so 4 players have tested positive over the last week for COVID-19. So it came out 2 weeks ago. I should have mentioned it last week. The testing for the players has now been reduced to once a week. So remember when Project Restart happened, they were doing it twice a week. It's now once a week. I think it happens on a Monday after sort of the round of fixtures. So yeah, that's happening now for the 4 players. We don't know who they are. The players haven't been mentioned. The Premier League haven't come out and said it, nor have any of the Premier League clubs. There's a couple of other sort of positive bits of news for various clubs. So you've got Arsenal and you've got Aston Villa. So we touch on Arsenal. Finally, he has signed a new deal at Arsenal, Aubameyang. So a 3-year deal. Brilliant news for Arsenal. Sorry, he's obviously the captain. He's their biggest goal scorer. He's their best player. He's a world-class asset. And if he did leave, it's going to cost them millions and millions of pounds to replace him. So the fact that he's finally signed the Ting, is massive news for Arsenal. Honestly, it just helps with the feel-good factor that's sort of at Arsenal at the moment. With winning the FA Cup and the Community Shield and the opening day win and signing Gabriel and Willian and obviously now Aubameyang as well. So it just feels like there's something materialising there at Arsenal. And just moving on to Aston Villa, obviously their captain as well, Jack Grealish, their best player, their talisman, if you like. He has signed a new 5-year contract at the club as well. Brilliant news for them. So it fends off, the likes of Man United or Arsenal that were linked with the clubs, with the players. Sorry. And granted, I know contracts these days don't mean a lot because you can sign it. It doesn't mean you're not going to go. But what it does mean, it just gives the clubs a bit more protection going forward as well. Yeah, guys. So that actually concludes another episode of the Premier League Appetiser show. What a brilliant week, in terms of the Premier League results, transfers happening, rumours happening, some League Cup stuff in there as well. Obviously, with the predictions that we've just discussed, and then obviously some positive news for managers and players signing extensions on their contracts as well. So yeah, guys, really positive episode today. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, again, just do it now. Loads of content coming your way, guys, in the coming weeks. There's going to be more people, bigger people, if you like. Maybe one or two celebrities coming onto the prediction show as well to sort of give their predictions and go against Indy and represent the rest of the world. So if you like that sort of content, click the subscribe button, leave a like, leave a comment as well, and we'll see everybody next week.